Okay, again, a very warm welcome from the eRevalue team, and welcome to our webinar on the enhanced ontology. Today we'll be speaking to Donato and Jerome, and with that I want to hand over the word to Donato.
Hello everybody, welcome and thank you for joining our webinar on the ontology enhancement. As you can see from the agenda, this webinar will give you an overview of our project on the ontology. In particular, we will describe how the key enhancements we introduced in April can support you in your analysis and research. We will also present what is coming up in the next months in terms of new functionalities and coverage extension as well. And finally, we will wrap up the conversation providing the key takeaways on how these enhancements will support your activities. And we will open the discussion to your questions as well. Before we move forward presenting the project, let me quickly present myself. My background is management and accounting, and after my studies, I started an international PhD program in corporate sustainability and sustainable development. That was an international program with different universities from China, United States, and Russia, joining my Italian academia as well. And my dissertation focused on the relationship between non-financial disclosure and environmental performance, economic performance, and financial performance. After the PhD, for me, it was quite a natural evolution joining eRevalue, where I joined 1 year ago, and I'm responsible for the analytical framework we use for the analysis of news, of reports and regulations. So the ontology, indeed. As you can see, our CTO and co-founder Jerome is with us in this webinar. I'm sure you already heard about him. Jerome, do you want to introduce the project?
Sure, thanks, Donato. So I'm the CTO, so I'm in charge of all the technical aspect at eRevalue, and it seems that I'm facing a small technical issue on my side. I hope it's just me, because I cannot see the presentation. So if by any chance any of you cannot see Donato's slide, just put in a comment in the chat. If it's just me, that's not a problem. I know what we'll be talking about. Now going back to the presentation. So I'm very, very pleased to see all of you here. Thanks a lot for joining us. This project, the Ontology project, or Ontologia, as we called it internally, because of Donato's Italian roots, has been one of the most important one at eRevalue in the last year. Across business and data science, we spent a significant amount of time to really make a couple of leap forward with our analysis of narrative. So we made a big leap forward on the technology side. We rebuilt what we had to make it more flexible, but we also, on the conceptual side, we also added a lot of additional elements that we had from the start in our vision, and that we now had the opportunity to really squeeze into the platform. So this is a very exciting time for us. We launched that new ontology a month back now, and we are really, really happy to see what it's bringing us and how it will help all of us get to deeper insights. So once again, thanks for joining, and I'll give you back the mic, Donato.
Thank you, Jerome. So I would not hesitate, and we'll go forward with our presentation so we can jump into the detail of the ontology project. First, as you can see from this visualization, our analytical framework, so the ontology itself, is actually a system of different ontologies. As we analyze different sources, so reports, regulations, news, and social media, all of them have their own linguistic and narrative peculiarities. So we want to make sure that we analyze in the proper way each of them. Of course, the different ontologies are bridged together to ensure the comparability across the different sources. So you can see actually how the different issues are discussed across the different sources. And the second key point of our ontology vision is that the system is dynamic. Because that's the only way that we can make sure that we enable continuous monitoring of issues. As you can see from the quote below from the World Economic Forum Global Risk Report 2007, the business arena, the business landscape is constantly changing because of complex transitions. We are trying to move towards a lower carbon future. We are on the edge of a new industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, regarding digital technology and digitalization of businesses. And also economic and geopolitical forces are a strong force in the business context. So what we want to do with our analytical system is make sure that with our enhancement, we can reflect all these changes in our research, in our analytical capabilities as well. What is more important is that the enhancements that we introduce into ontology are not limited to introduction of new issues, so new topics, but also include new functionalities, because we want to make sure that also the usability of the platform and what the contextual information that we provide around the issues becomes more and more important, more and more helpful for you and your research. Let's move forward to the key announcement we introduced this April. These key announcements cover 5 different areas of the ontology, as you can see. The first one is context. We introduce a new system that analyzes the relationship among the different terms that we have in the ontology, so that we can reflect in a way the context in which an issue is reported. Let's make an example. The term discrimination may refer to general human rights issues or specific employment workforce issues. So in the reports, the disclosures regarding discrimination can refer to these different domains. And the context analysis, which is now possible with the new ontology, allows to distinguish between these different settings, these different contexts. In terms of coverage, following also what we saw before in the World Economic Forum Global Risk Report, we extended the scope of our ontology to less traditional ESG issues. So we also included now issues related to topics related to innovation, geopolitical, tech, technology, innovation, and digitalization. And besides the introduction of these new topics, we also expanded the current scope of existing topics. For example, the new movement of science-based targets or science-based goals for climate change, for what concerns climate change or climate action, is now included in the already existing climate change topic. So in terms of coverage, we have 2 key announcements. One is the introduction of new areas, and 2 is the extension of topics that were already existing. Moving to flexibility, we have changed some structures in the backend, allowing us to be quicker and more flexible in assessing topics and search terms, and also allowing us to do research outside the current coverage of documents present in Datamaran, meaning that we can analyze new topics, new search terms in documents that are not the traditional documents that we have in Datamaran. For example, industry reports or investors reports by KPMG, Deloitte, or other institutions and consultancy. This is, for example, can be used in terms of materiality assessment to enlarge and expand the boundaries of the exercise and ensure we analyze the largest base possible of stakeholders. In terms of adaptability, we introduce a new functionality, the strategic issue radar, in the system, which allows thematic analysis of the issues and mapping against global frameworks and standards like the Sustainable Development Goals or the GRI standards. I will show you more in detail this functionality later on in the presentation. And last but not least, we are finalizing new languages. In particular, the Spanish system of ontologies is being finalized and will be ready soon. So this sums up the key announcements and how they help you. We introduced in April with the new ontology. To provide you with some practical examples of the usability of the announcements I've just presented, we can check this example on digital transformation. And I think that Jerome is the best person to explain this. So Jerome, please.
Yeah, all right. So as you say, I think it's an interesting insight from the capability of the platform. So as Donato mentioned, so we expanded the monitoring of the issues around the new types of issues. Notably, we now also monitor things around the technology. So digitalization in itself, or digital transformation, is something that we were very, very curious to observe. And so with the new ontology, we run this temporal analysis to look at over those years of data, only looking at the financial reports. So for that set of 7,000 companies that we have under the database, we started to look at what are those issues that are mentioned the most within those reports, and specifically zooming in on what we call emerging issues. What are the emerging issues? What are the ones that were hardly mentioned a few years back and that are picking up? And what is striking there, and you can see that with the red line, is the uptake of digitalization. In a few years, it really grew up to a point where now 1/3 of the companies are talking about it in their financial reports. So meaning that they are deeply embedding the issue around digital transformation into their strategy. And this is, the type of uptake that we hardly see typically on any other non-financial issues. So that was a very, very interesting insight. We provide a bit more detail and context around that in the Global Insight report that should go out to you very soon. And on the next slide, also what we have as a zoom inside the context of digital transformation is that we looked at the different theme. So in this narrative around digitalization, what were the different themes that were developed, that were mentioned in those reports? And to me, what is really interesting there is to see that, especially in the last year of reports that we have, those themes were becoming more and more business centric. So we moved away from a pure technology description like big data to talking about things like mobile payment, artificial intelligence, or Bitcoin, etc. So we're getting into a more elaborated way of talking about that issue into the financial report. So that's the type of insight that we are able to get to with the latest ontology.
Okay, thank you, Jerome. And let's continue with the second example of what we also introduced with the ontology enhancement. As I mentioned before, we added a new functionality called the strategic issues rather. And this functionality is also coherent with the scope expansion of the ontology. As now we include technology, economic, innovation, geopolitical issues, those are more and more related one to the other. In a way, this reflects the logic of systemic and integrated thinking. What we wanted to achieve with the strategic issues radar was to provide a practical tool to reflect this approach. And that approach leverages on techniques such as issues mapping, aggregation, and grouping, because that is the way to make sense and export the strategic insights related to these larger topics or higher level issues. Let's make, this is a conceptual example. For example, we have human rights, forced labor, and human trafficking that are mapped against the SDG 1, no poverty, whereas digitalization, digital inclusion, innovation, research development are typically topics very relevant, part of the conversation and awareness regarding SDG 9, which is about sustainable cities and innovation. So this is conceptually how the strategic issue, the rationale behind the strategic issues radar. If we move to the next slide, we see how this actually appears in the platform and what are the key use cases for it. As I said, the strategic issues radar analyzes the topic grouped in one or more sets. In the example you see above, you see the whole collection of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So all the topics we have in the ontology have been mapped to each SDG to monitor the coverage and the level of preparedness that each company has on these. So the tool can be used basically for one, aligning the strategy with the global frameworks or standards. So this is the example with the SDG, but the same exercise can be done with the G4 guidelines or the GRI standards or the Integrated Reporting Council 6 capitals. And these mappings are already integrated in the profile, so you can find them right now. And the second use case for this tool is creating your own categorization of issues. You can actually customize what are the issues mapped against each SDG or each strategic issue that you can define. Let's make an example. If you want to group together all the issues that regard water pollution or employment, this can be done to allow a different kind of analysis, or to handle, for example, a shorter list of issues rather than the more than 100 issues that we have in Datamaran right now. Moving to the future developments, we focused the research and the exploration we are doing for the future of the ontology around three key use cases. So what are the business impacts related to each issue? In this sense, we are working on a system of additional words and concepts that we call the qualifiers, that will help navigating the different impacts associated to the disclosures in terms, for example, of actions, risk, and compliance. In other terms, each disclosure can have a different meaning and color when mentioning a specific issue. And a disclosure on human rights can be about compliance on due processes of validation and assessment, or about human rights risk along the supply chain. We want the system to be able to point out these different content. Second key point is, what are the risks and opportunities that link one issue to others? This is what we call the interactions or collocation among topics. It's actually the analysis of what is the relationship, for example, a cause and effect relationship between the two topics mentioned in a single disclosure. If we make the example of an initiative of responsible investment in a local community, we have two topics actually mentioned in that disclosure, and understanding what is the cause-effect relationship between the two can also provide further deep to the analysis. And last but not least, we are working on the extension of the coverage, so on an ontology of an enhancement of the ontology dedicated to news and social media. So what are the key takeaways of the enhancement of the ontology? How can it actually help you with your research and also deliverables as well? First, the ontology. The system of ontology now is more efficient and more effective in indicating what is on the horizon from multiple perspectives and different lenses. So we are making sure that you can have a verifiable audit trail of issues coming from the broadest stakeholder base available. We are also constantly monitoring how the risk landscape is changing, and the extension of our scope to geopolitical innovation technology issues allows the rapid identification and assessment of their relevance in terms of your business, of your sector, of your country as well. And finally, we are evolving our system in the direction of analyzing more and more, providing more insights in terms of impacts, risk, and opportunities and implications associated to each issue. This is in the direction of integrated thinking. Again, we want to make sure that the results, our results and our data is more relevant for other processes like risk management, materiality assessment, and also general strategic planning as well. So before closing up the presentation and opening it to your questions, you have actually the possibility to become an ontologist yourself. We want the development of the ontologists to be an open process. And of course, your contribution can be key to the evolution of our system. And we have a number of action points that you can see listed here that can help us and also help you to contribute to the ontology. First, you can explore new terms and combination of terms as well using the search module. Second, as I said before, we introduced the strategic issues radar, and you can actually customize the mappings there, changing the topics that are involved in each issue. you can set up alerts to follow and monitor regulatory updates, and as well suggest us new topics or new terms that can be introduced in the ontology. So with this invitation to help us and explore how exciting it can be to be an ontologist yourself, I open up to questions.
Yeah, thank you, Donato and Jerome. So yeah, now you have the possibility to ask questions. You can use the Q&A function within the Zoom tool, or chat us the questions, and we will take them one by one. I see the first question coming in. The question is about the validation process. What steps have been taken to validate the new topics that were added?
Okay, so in terms of validation, we had deep and thorough process of validation that included, on one side, manual annotation of the reports and documents, in the sense that our team of analysts actually read the report and annotated the report using their analytical experience. And that provided us with the so-called golden records, that we actually compare the results of the machine with the results of the human analysis to make sure that the results were consistent in a way. A second important part of the validation was related to the analysis of hits, which means what terms are picked up in the reports. The analysis of hits per sector and per country to understand all the distributions of our scores. And finally, the contribution of our technical advisory board, which provided external experience, knowledge, and indication on the ontology development process.
All right. Thank you very much, Donato. There's another question asking how often clients can expect an update or an enhancement to the ontology moving forward.
Yes. Jerome, do you want to answer this question, or I'll take it?
Oh, no, I think take it.
Okay. So as I said before, the ontology very much reflects the changes in the business landscape that we see. So we make sure that we regularly monitor what's there and what is changing. So we analyze also a number of external sources and reports to make sure that everything that is significant and emerging is integrated and present in the ontology. Also interaction with the users, carrying out special projects such as risk assessment or materiality assessment as well, gives us the opportunity to understand what are the new things that should be included in the ontology. As I said before, the system of ontologies is dynamic, so regularly we enhance it, and of course making sure that the new elements of it are make sure that the continuity of the results and don't cause disruption.
All right. Thank you very much. We have reached the end of our time here. Again, I also want to thank everyone for joining our webinar, and thank you to Donato and Jerome for presenting today. A recording of the webinar will be available on Datamaran after this, and we also, of course, always invite you to reach out to us if you have any questions, but also with suggestions for next webinars or topics that you want us to touch upon that might be interesting to you, also to the broader client base. With that, I want to close it off and wish you a nice rest of the day or rest of the evening, depending on where you are in the world.
Thank you.